Alright guys, today we are going to be talking suppressors, and I'm going to take y'all's advice and step back a little bit further so you can see what I'm holding more clearly in my hands. So what I'm going to do today is start by talking about my journey into the suppressor world, the NFA world, my first can, and then kind of build from there on the order in which I bought cans to the best of my memory and the reasons and the thought process behind buying those cans. And then talk a little bit about accessories and muzzle devices and attachments, things like that, attachment methods rather. And then I guess I'll kind of just try to wrap it all up if my ADHD doesn't get the best of me before then, and kind of tell you guys what I've learned at the end of the video and just kind of walk through that with you guys. So let me set these cans down real quick and we'll start at the beginning. But before I do, as you guys know, all these videos are funded by yours truly. So we do have one major sponsor on the channel, that's Brownells. And I have a discount code with them. If you use discount code RDB10, it saves you 10% off at Brownells, and it gives the channel a little bit of kickback. Liking, commenting, subscribing is a free way to support the channel, and if you really got it and you really like these videos, a super thanks is a huge direct contribution to the channel. So that's a huge way to support the channel, as well as rangedaybro.com for the Range Day hose and other merch and things like that. So without further ado, let's talk about the first can I ever bought, which was this Silencer Co. Hybrid 46 right here. And let me just start by saying it's very naive of you and of me to think that you're going to buy one suppressor. It's like a tattoo. It's what I always equate it to. If you have one tattoo, most likely you have more than one tattoo, because once you kind of go over that, once you kind of take the leap of faith to getting a tattoo or buying a suppressor and getting into this world, it's way easier to get the second one and the third one and so on and so forth. And you realize that a jack of all trades, a master of none, really it leaves a lot to be desired, to say the least. So the Hybrid 46 has served me really well. I love this can. Again, it is a jack of all trades, a master of none, so it can suppress everything up to 338 Lapua Magnum. I believe it's rated for 338 Lapua. We're going to find out, because I'm definitely going to use this for my 338 Lapua, which I've had for years and never even shot. But I used it in my 45 ACP. Famously, one of my favorite guns to shoot, or take new shooters to shoot, was this can with my FNX 45 Tactical, which which was my favorite setup to take new people to the range, because it sounded like a paintball gun. It was the quietest gun I owned by far, even quieter than my 300 Blackouts with subs. It was just super quiet. It was super fun. And the way this can is so heavy, it would just weigh that gun down so much that it barely had any kick to it whatsoever. And oddly enough, I guess I don't know why I'm surprised, but I never had a malfunction with this can and that gun, as dirty as it got, and it got really dirty at some point. So this can's great for 9mm 45. It's kind of a do-it-all can, 46 caliber, a bore there, so you can put, I mean, maybe you can see how wide that bore is. It's incredibly large. It's like a boba straw. It's what it reminds me of. It's that thick. But you can shoot a lot of stuff with this. You could obviously buy different end caps and things like that, but by the time you buy all the muzzle devices and all the end caps, if you want to run this on all your rigs, you might as well have bought another more purpose-built can than this. So this is the first can I bought. Again, being naive, thinking I only need one can. Actually, my wife got me this for a combination Christmas and anniversary gift. So big shout out to Mrs. Range Day Bro for this can. But shortly after I bought this can, I started digging and doing more research. And before I even got this one approved, I actually went out and I bought the Nomad 30. So the Nomad 30, I was kind of talked into this. This is my first dead air can. And I was kind of talked into this can by the folks over at my local gun store. I told them, I wanted a more purpose-built can for like 300 Blackout that could also be used on 5.56. And again, without doing too much research, I mean, I did a little bit of research, don't get me wrong. Like, I was doing research and like listening to this versus that and doing comparison videos. And no one really had anything negative to say about the Nomad 30. And so I did a little bit more research, and then I ended up buying the Nomad 30. This can is it's a 30 cal can, so it's definitely more of a purpose-driven can for 308, 300 Blackout. Also, it could shoot 5.56 pretty well. And this can is my go-to 300 Blackout can. Now you see it with the dead air chemo muzzle device, quick detach device here in the back. So it is a little bit longer and a little bit heavier than running it direct thread, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to get into all the specs on all these different cans. This is more of an in general my journey video. So I bought this can second. Again, had it shipped to that local gun store, that FFL that I love and go to all the time, Sportsman's Finest. And it sat there, and I was waiting on it. And then while I was waiting on this one, again, being very impatient, I found out about a rule that, at least in Texas, I'm pretty sure in most states where you can buy suppressors, if you have this suppressor sent to a FFL that also has a gun range on premises, you can do a conjugal visit. You can go there, give them your ID, and then they'll give you your can, and you can go shoot it while you're there on the property. And then when you leave, you give them the can back, give your ID back, and then you can go about your day. But it's cool that you got to shoot your own can. And so what did I do? I saved up a little bit more, and then I went and bought the Sandman S from Dead Air. Again, because after the research I had done, a lot of people had said the Chemo was the best quick detach method on the market. And again, take this with a grain of salt. This is just what I was hearing from people around me between Capital Armory and Sportsman's Finest. Dead Air had a really good reputation at the time, and the Chemo was regarded as one of the best QDs on the market, although I know some of you may have a different story with that. And I myself have had my own issues with the Chemo, but at the time, I was told this was the best, so I had it sent to the range at Austin, which is obviously a range, and I was able to go there, bring my guns there, throw this on my guns, and actually shoot it. And that was really cool to actually kind of get that itch out of my system. Obviously you're at an indoor range with everybody else shooting unsuppressed, so it wasn't like I got to pop my ears off and hear what it sounded like, but it was still fun to see and use and hear my guns and see how they ejected differently and stuff like that while I was waiting for the can. So this was the third can I purchased. Now, after this can, it gets a little blurry for me because then I started to really get into suppressors. And I believe, and I might be wrong, but I believe the can I bought after that was the Sandman K that you guys saw yesterday on the Scar 17 video. And that's here on the Scar 17. And this has kind of become my dedicated Scar can because it is absolutely, this is a really long gun. 16-inch gun rather. It's not super long, but it's a 16-inch barrel. And so I wanted a fighting can, so to speak, of my battle rifle to keep this thing that's already pretty heavy, more wieldy, still able to kind of maneuver it for the most part indoors without too much tremendous effort. It kind of brings the overall length up to about, I'd say probably about 20 inches. So if you're running a 20-inch AR-15, it's probably about the same length as you're running with a flash hider on there, a birdcage. So it keeps it relatively short. But at the time I bought this Sandman K for the MR556, which was in my mind was going to be this like do-all everything go to war rifle because it was from HK, a short stroke gas piston system. And without getting into too much detail on that, it just, I realized that I really didn't need that type of operating system for what I'm doing in direct impingement. And no, it's a stupid mistake to make. And I'm not shitting on HK at all. I still love that rifle. It's still like one of my nicest guns I own, but it is just so heavy that when you're wearing a carrier and you're running drills with it, your arms, as much as I work out, which is not enough, I need to go more, but it just obliterates your shoulders, and you can 100% tell the difference from going from that to a DI gun like the URGI 14.5. But this can was originally for the HK MR556 because it was a 16.5-inch barrel. I didn't want something super long, and Dead Air had not come out with a 5.56 can at that point yet. So that's where I got the Sandman K from. And that's the idea behind it. I was like, I want a shorter fighting can to take the edge off of that 16.5-inch 5.56, but still make it, relatively wieldable. And it's now morphed into my Scar can because I've made a lot of adjustments to the Scar. All right, I apologize for that interruption, guys. My camera died, but we're right back. All I was saying was the Sandman K was originally for the HK MR556, but it's morphed into the Scar can. And I've been able to do that because I made a lot of upgrades to the Scar 17, including an adjustable gas block, amongst other things that have allowed me to run a traditional baffle stack can on here. So with that being said, that's kind of where it's living now, and it's found its permanent home on this gun because it actually runs really great, and it sounds pretty good actually, all things considered, for a 16-inch 308. It sounds pretty great with just the Sandman K on there. Obviously, I wouldn't run an all-day class without Ear Pro with this, but for that hunting trip I just went on this past Friday, for that one shot, it sounded incredibly well. You could hear it in the video. It was definitely not unbearable. So that was the Sandman K purchase. And then after the Sandman K, let me run out of room here. After the Sandman K came, to this date, my absolute favorite suppressor and favorite kind of setup to take new shooters on, and that is the Otter Creek Labs OCM5. This suppressor, once I got into the Mark 12 kind of fandom, I really wanted to build a modernized Mark 12, or my version of a Mark 12. So obviously, there's nothing clone correct about this rifle, besides the Ops Inc. break-in collar and besides the PRI gas buster charging handle. It's the only two things that are actually clone correct on this build. And so this actually has the Law Tactical folder on it, which makes this a pretty neat little compact 18-inch SPR once you fold it all up, which is pretty great. But the reason this can is my absolute favorite to shoot is because it is so quiet, and with an 18-inch barrel, 223 5.56 just feels like a 22. It has barely any recoil. With the Law Tactical folder on here, it also adds a little bit of mass to the you know, the BCG, the reciprocating mass. So it slows everything down a little bit, and it's just so incredibly quiet and so pleasant to shoot. It is easy to get double taps at 400 yards. I'm talking like bang, bang, hit, you know, like follow through buck on Instagram. That's who I'm trying to be like when I'm shooting this thing. But it's just such a quiet can. This whole gun is just such a vibe with this suppressor on here. So it just quickly became my favorite suppressor. And this rifle is one of my absolute favorite. It's my favorite 223 rifle to shoot at distance. Obviously, I'm not going and, you know, kicking down doors, or not planning to with this thing, but it works off this brake and collar system. So the actual threads for the muzzle device, the threads for the suppressor are actually recessed in the suppressor itself. So it kind of goes over the barrel and indexes on this collar back here. And that's why it quickly became my favorite suppressor, because it's just so quiet and it just does the job so well. It makes this shooting experience really pleasant. Definitely hearing safe. It's one of the quietest suppressors I own. It's the quietest for a rifle caliber. Let's put it that way. Besides Subsonic 300 Black. So this was the can I bought after the Sandman K, and this was one of my favorite purchases ever. And this is what kind of put Otter Creek Labs on the map, because I wanted an AEM5 from Allen Engineering. I was told he was done making them, but I think he just really makes them at his own pace. So, and I was told everything about this is better. It's lighter, it's just as quiet, and less back pressure apparently. So I've never shot the AEM, I say apparently because I've never shot the AEM5 for comparison, but I believe all those claims because of how amazing this can is. So huge fan of Otter Creek Labs. That's what put them on the map for me. And then that was the last can, I believe. No, sorry, not the last can. And then in comes the Sierra 5. And the Sierra 5 was obviously a massive letdown for me, being that it exploded during my combat loadout test. It was the first time I ever did a combat loadout test, and I had suspicions that it might not pass because of some things that the folks at Capital Armor had said to me when I told them I was going to run it on my Mark 18. And they didn't say like it's going to fail, but it seemed like they knew something was up when they're like, I wouldn't kill it on your Mark 18. Something along those lines it was said, but don't quote me on that. I just remember thinking, I wonder why that is, because it's full auto rated, no barrel length restrictions, all that good stuff. So I torture tested it and it failed. And obviously since this failure, I've been doing that same test on all of my duty rated cans. I haven't done it on the Flow 762 Ti, which I'm jumping ahead here, because it's not really made for that. Even though it says full auto rated and stuff like that, like I don't have the money to mag dump 7 full mags of 762 by 51. I just can't find cheap 762 anywhere. Otherwise I probably would. But it does take a toll on my cans, and these cans, all the ones that I've mentioned, I've paid for in full. So all the ones up to this point, I paid for with my own money, and then only more recently have I got cans sent to me. So the Sierra 5 kind of speaks for itself. A lot of you guys who follow my channel follow me because of that whole incident. So I won't harp on this thing too much, but I bought this, obviously being a Dead Air fan, I was excited for this, and it was pretty cheap if you bought it without the chemo mount. It was like $650 at the time without the chemo, with a no mount, without the Xeno or the chemo. And so it was a pretty cheap, barrier to entry. So I got it, and I was going to use it on, my 13.5s, my 14.5s, things like that. So that's why I bought the Sierra 5. And then after the Sierra 5, I acquired the Polonium K, which was sent to me by Otter Creek Labs. Andrew over there was nice to send it to me. Actually, after he saw the video of this blowing up, I messaged him on Reddit where he was at, commenting on it. And I was like, hey, if your can won't do that, send me one. And he was like, all right, bet. So he did. He put his money where his mouth was, and he sent it to me. And then since then, I've also acquired 2 energetic armament cans in working with them on some reviews. They provided me with a Ferox 556, which is their new 556 can. Also did a combat loadout test on that suppressor. And then, as well as the Polonium K, which I forgot to mention, I did that combat loadout test on the Polonium K already, and the Ferox. They're both still in NFA jail. I just was able to go out with somebody from the FFL to use those and test those at the range for one day. And then lastly, the last can I acquired with a small discount from Huxworks was the Huxworks Flow 762 Ti. So I believe that's every can. Oh, and then, so another story, after this had happened, much like Glock, I was holding out, you call me a hipster, call me whatever you want. I was holding out on the Surefire RC2 for the longest time, although I wanted one to kind of make my Mark 18 clone correct, and to clone correct other builds like, my Daniel Defense Block 2 upper, and now my URGI. So I finally bit the bullet and I purchased an RC2 again with my own money at full price after I had this failure, because this was supposed to be my workhorse 556 can and it failed me. So I decided to just bite the bullet and get off the hate train for Surefire. And it's not that I hate Surefire, I just think that they don't do the best to support the civilian market. So I don't want to support companies like that if I can avoid it. But undoubtedly, it's one of the most durable cans in the market. So, and it's nice that they do sell to civilians. It's just I don't think civilians are their top priority, or at least equal priorities with their government contracts, which upsets me. Obviously, as a civilian, I believe civilians owning firearms is the pinnacle, most important thing. So the military has enough, has enough suppressors going their way. It should be equal treatment at the very least. So with that being said, that was the last can that I have. So I have, I guess, 5 in NFA gel, one more energetic can, the Sonus, the 9mm, I believe. So I haven't actually shot that one yet, but I did get that one as well, and I'm waiting on it right now. So that's my journey in the suppressor world. Now let's just talk about what I've learned. What I learned was you're extremely naive if you believe that you're only going to have one suppressor. And that's not true for everybody, but for most guys who are, again, watching these videos, you take your firearm seriously, you train, you go to the range often or regularly. For you guys, it's pretty naive to think you're just going to have one suppressor. So what I would say is, instead of going with a hybrid 46, unless you have, a 45, a 9, a 300 blackout, 300, Win Mag, and 556 that you want to suppress with the same can, and you're going to buy other cans in the future to do those other calibers, more effectively, to suppress those other calibers more effectively, and you kind of know what you're getting into, I wouldn't go the route of the hybrid 46. Now, because it's not a great pistol can, it's heavy, it's really wide. Even with suppressor height sights on my FNX 45 Tactical, I wasn't able to see over this thing. And so it just doesn't do anything that great. Although I did really like, it does do pretty good on most calibers, including 300 blackout, including 760 by 39 as well. Out of my AK, this was a pretty great mount, can rather. And so I would just start with a 30 cal can, because that'll do your 300 blackouts, your 308s, and your 556. And then if and when you decide to get a more dedicated can, you can get a 9mm can, you can get a 556 can, and just kind of skip the jack of all trades deal, because you're going to get more cans and you could save $1,000 in the tax stamp for something more purpose driven. So that's my piece of advice there. I guess that's what I've learned in this whole journey. Also, things can change, companies can change, service and quality can change. Again, not trying to throw shade at dead air. This is just, everything I'm saying is factual. When I first had my conjugal visits, one of my last conjugal visits with my Sandman S before it blew up, I had a baffle strike. I didn't tighten the chemo down enough. It was user error. I didn't tighten it down enough because I had previously gotten it stuck on one of my guns that was pin and welded, and by removing it, I actually broke my pin and weld and messed up the barrel threads and everything trying to get it out. And so that was kind of the reason I didn't over tighten it, because I had over tightened it in the past, shot it super hard and ran it really hard, and then I had broke my pin and weld loose. So I didn't want that to happen again. And so in doing so, I under tightened it after my 7th mag with my 300 blackout. AR at the time had backed off, and I just started seeing sparks go down. All right, hopefully it doesn't happen a third time. My battery died again, even though my camera's plugged in, so I apologize. I'll try to summarize things. I have a way of just going down these rabbit holes. So I had a baffle strike during my conjugal visit. It turned out it was like 3 days before my can got approved. So I was super bummed out and super upset about that. However, I sent it to Dead Air. They got it back to me in 6 days. So they repaired my can, recorded it, re-cerakoted it, put a new chemo hardware on it, and sent it back to me in 6 days. So I had a tremendously good experience with Dead Air the first time. And that's not a lie. That's all factual. However, as I mentioned, things change and companies change, and sometimes for the worse. In this situation, it was for the worse with the Sierra 5. And so, as you can tell, I was a huge Dead Air fan for a long time, and I didn't look really elsewhere for suppressors, because I'm the kind of guy, when I find something that works for me, I tend to stick with it. And so after this happened, that kind of rattled my world a little bit in my outlook on suppressors. And so I started looking elsewhere towards other manufacturers, and it kind of opened my view quite a bit on that. So I became more open-minded when it came to suppressors, because again, like a lot of you guys, if you find something that works for you, if you swear by Otter Creek, if you swear by Rugged, if you swear by Silencer Co., or if you swear by Dead Air, until something really kind of earth-shattering happens, you tend to stick with it. So that was, again, a big part of my journey, and the camera dying kind of threw me off in my thought process here. But let's just talk about muzzle devices. because that's a big part of the suppressor journey as well. If you have multiple rifles that you want to run your suppressors on, and you're not going to be direct threading them, you need to think about quick detach and muzzle devices and things like that. So again, that's why a lot of people do stick with one suppressor manufacturer for what they're getting into, because again, you don't want to have to buy. I mean, you could bankrupt yourself just buying muzzle devices. Each one of these dead air flash hiders costs about $90. And so that adds up. If you have 4 rifles, 4 times 90, that's quite a bit of money. So that's another reason. The cool thing about the suppressor industry today is that most of the backs of these suppressors are all a standard thread pattern. So you can buy whatever quick detach method that you prefer. And again, I'm already pretty heavily invested in the dead air chemo muzzle device. So this can thread into the back of that hybrid 46. And so you can kind of choose one QD method and put it on most suppressors. Obviously, there's exceptions to that, like the Huxworks flow cans and like the Surefire cans, for instance. But for the most part, Otter Creek Labs, Energetic Armament, Dead Air, I mean, you name it, Q, so on and so forth, Yankee Hill, I'm pretty sure, in Silencer Co., they all have the same thread pattern on the back of the suppressor, so you can use whatever QD device you want, so that if you want to switch to one of their cans, or if you just want to try out one of their cans, you don't have to buy 10 new muzzle devices and 10 new QD type attachments. So that's the cool part that the industry has done, as well as like JMac has come out with some pretty cool stuff for like AKs and whatnot. This is one of their, it says it on here, 24F X37. So this goes on an AK and then it directly mounts to the back of your suppressor using these threads right here, which is pretty cool. And so that's another method and another way you could attach your suppressors, obviously besides direct threading them. So with that being said, what did I learn, I guess, along the way, since this video is already dragging out, probably have to make it 2 parts, we'll see, is that don't be so closed-minded and don't be so tribal when it comes to your gear. Your gear is not your personality or is not your identity. So a lot of guys in this gun world, we've talked about this before, will identify as a Surefire elitist, or hey, I'm an HK guy who only uses HK, or I'm a B&T guy, I'm better than you, or hey, I'm a Yankee Hill, like you're paying too much money for junk. It's like, it's all got its place, and it all has, every company, no matter what product you buy, like every company's gonna have a lemon. It's really not about it's obviously about having a good product, but it's more so about customer service to me. And so that's what I've learned. I've learned that it doesn't really matter what can you buy. Most of them are so similarly good, especially in 2023, about to be 2024, that we're like in the golden age of suppressors and firearms. So we're really living our best life as possible as far as getting good suppressors. What I will say, I'll just kind of go over my favorites. So my favorite for 5.56 is the OCM5, hands down, but it is a long can. It does require a specific barrel type, although Otter Creek makes these muzzle devices that doesn't require you to have that barrel type, which is pretty cool. But it is a long can. It's not perfect for everybody. It's not perfect for like a shorty, although I would like to run it on some short guns, and I may do that in the future because it is such a great can. As far as like 300 blackout, I got to say my favorite is the Dead Air Nomad 30. It's got so much internal volume. When you're running subs with this thing, it is super quiet, and I beat it up pretty hard. I never put it through the combat loadout test. Again, I didn't start that till later, till the Sierra 5, but I've run this thing very hard, and probably much harder than it's supposed to be run, being that it is not advertised as a high-use can. But I really love this for 300 blackout. It's a great can for that. I believe this is my favorite for that. And then as far as like, all right guys, I'm gonna wrap this video up because this is the 4th time my camera's died, although I have it plugged in, so I apologize. Maybe that's God telling me I've been rambling too long. So long story short, what do I think anyone who's getting into the new suppressor journey needs to hear? It doesn't matter so much what can you buy, because you're gonna learn quickly that there's other cans out there. First of all, the technology is constantly evolving. So if you can go to these events like the Silence in the Capital event that Capital Armory puts on and actually shoot these suppressors side by side, listen to the differences. But the cans are so close in quality as far as like how they sound and how durable they are, in my opinion. Just know that titanium cans typically are less durable than stainless steel cans. Flow-through cans are a thing now, 3D printed cans. So there's just so much to tackle. I can't really talk about it all in one video. This should be probably a multi-video series, and we can kind of tackle different aspects of the suppressor world, as far as like even just muzzle devices and attachments styles, as well as like flow-through cans, as well as like different materials. And that's a conversation for somebody who's much smarter than me. to have with y'all, and as well as like cleaning suppressors and whatnot. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, no matter what suppressor you buy, just get into it. Just start with a gun trust. I definitely recommend doing a gun trust. That's not a single shot trust. I also screwed up doing that when I first started. Get a gun trust that can house all your NFA items on one trust, and then just take the dive, take the leap, forget about it for a while, or if you need to, watch videos on YouTube to get that scratch out of your system. I recommend getting it sent to an FFL where you can shoot it while you wait for it. Although I've heard mixed reviews on that, and you don't know who's shooting your can while it's there. But I mean, if you go send it to a reputable FFL, they're not going to let anybody else shoot your can besides you. So that's what I would recommend, and that way you can kind of get that scratch out of your system while you're waiting. And then lastly, I would just plan based off of what your fighting rifle is, what rifle you're going to defend your life with. If you're grabbing, if shit's in the fan, I would get the best can for that gun to start. And like a lot of you guys, I don't like to be a guinea pig. So as long as I held on the RC2, I really was a guinea pig with the Sierra 5. It blew up in my face, quite literally. And then I finally dove into the RC2 for my serious. This is my new nightstand, do everything rifle, the 14.5 from Geisley URGI. And as you can see, it's pin and welded, although I didn't have a choice, from Geisley with a Surefire muzzle device. But my Block 2 is running a Surefire muzzle device. My 6 Spear is also running a Surefire muzzle device. So I switched over on all my serious stuff to that proven can. Although it's old technology, they have the RC3 out now, which I know a lot of you guys are like, why did you get the RC3? Again, I don't think I need the RC3, especially for the price tag they're asking on this type of setup. It's just not really required, although I know there's benefits to low back pressure. Don't get me wrong, but on a rifle like this, it's not 100% necessary. On a rifle like this, however, my HK MR762, the flow through was more necessary, and that is why I got the Huxworks Flow 762 Ti, forgive me, for this rifle, because HK, although I believe they have an adjustable gas block version of the G28 for the military, I believe, I could be wrong, they don't release it to the civilian market. So this requires, because there's too much gas with a traditional baffle stack can for a gun like this. So my advice is, again, just get whatever gun you're going to be fighting for your life with. If shit really hit the fan or to defend yourself, bumping the night, I would get the can dedicated that's going to best suit that. It's going to be the best can for that. And then from there, I would go more towards, the rest of your rifles. And I would do kind of the opposite of what I did, which was buy this do-it-all can to start and then kind of get more specific as time went on. So the nice middle ground is a 30 cal can. Again, the Sandman S has never let me down. It's not a Maraca. It's taken a lot of abuse in its day. So the Sandman S was a good can for that. But again, given what Dead Eric's gone through recently, that's for you to decide whether you want to be, to put your faith back in them. So with that all being said, guys, thank you so much for staying to the end of the video. Hopefully you enjoyed this talk. If you guys liked the video, liking, commenting, subscribing is a huge help. Super thanks are a direct way to contribute to the channel, and I really appreciate every single super thanks you guys send my way. It is much appreciated, as well as Brownells RDB10 for 10% off at brownells.com and rangedbro.com for merch and things like that. So love you guys. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments, or over on Instagram is probably the best way to DM me. It's rangedbro on Instagram as well if you have any questions about any of these suppressors or my experience with any of these cans. And so, yeah, if you guys want to message me over there, I'd be glad to answer any of your questions. So love you guys. Thank you so much for staying to the end of the video. See you next time.